Every morning, before the world fully wakes up, before traffic fills the streets, before emails begin flooding inboxes, two friends start their day, Jake and Mike. They've been friends since college. They graduated together, applied for the same jobs, got hired by the same company. Even today, they earn almost the exact same salary. If you looked at them from the outside, you'd probably say they have the same chance of becoming wealthy. But 5 years from now, only one of them will have real financial freedom. The other will still be wondering why money always seems to disappear. And the strange part, neither one of them ever realizes the exact moment their futures begin to separate. Because it doesn't happen with one big decision. It happens with hundreds of tiny ones, the kind nobody pays attention to. Mike isn't lazy. He wakes up on time, works hard, pays his rent, pays his bills. He's responsible. He isn't gambling. He isn't buying luxury cars. He isn't wasting thousands of dollars every month. In fact, if you met Mike, you'd probably think he has his life together. Because from the outside, he looks exactly like millions of people. Every morning, Mike stops at the same coffee shop, $5. Every afternoon, lunch with coworkers, $12. Driving home. He orders dinner because he's tired, $20. Later that night, Netflix, Spotify, cloud storage, gaming subscription. None of them seem expensive. Individually, they're almost invisible, and that's exactly why Mike never questions them. Because nobody worries about $5. Nobody loses sleep over $12. Nobody thinks, this coffee is going to keep me poor. That sounds ridiculous, right? Mike thinks the same thing. Across town, Jake walks into the exact same coffee shop, orders the exact same drink, smiles at the same barista, pays the same $5. So, what's different? Nothing, at least, not yet. A few minutes later, Jake sits down at his desk, before checking social media, before reading emails, before shopping online. He opens one app, his investment account. He transfers $10, then closes the app. The entire process takes less than 30 seconds. Mike notices. He laughs. Seriously? Jake looks up. Mike points at the screen. You actually think $10 is going to change your life? Jake smiles. No. Mike laughs even harder. Then why are you doing it? Jake doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he puts his phone back into his pocket, looks out the window for a second, then quietly says, I'm not investing $10. Mike frowns. Jake continues, I'm investing the habit. Mike shrugs. I still don't get it. Jake smiles. You don't have to. That conversation lasts less than a minute. By lunchtime, Mike has already forgotten about it. Jake hasn't. Because Jake understands something that almost nobody else does. Money doesn't change your life first. Your habits do. Money simply follows them. And that's where the story really begins. For the next few months, nothing dramatic happens. Neither of them gets promoted, neither wins the lottery, neither starts a business. Life continues exactly as normal, which is precisely why Mike believes nothing is changing. But something is changing, just not where he can see it. Because the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make rarely feel important while you're making them. And that's the dangerous part. By the time they look important, years have already passed. Over the next few months, Jake and Mike keep repeating the exact same routines. One of those routines quietly builds freedom. The other quietly builds dependence. And neither of them notices until it's impossible to ignore. Mike never thought of himself as bad with money. In fact, if you asked him how he managed his finances, he'd probably say, I'm doing okay. He paid his rent on time. His credit card wasn't maxed out. He wasn't buying designer clothes every weekend, and he wasn't spending thousands of dollars on luxury vacations. So in his mind, he wasn't the problem. Life was. Everything just felt expensive. Gas cost more. Rent kept increasing. Groceries somehow became twice as expensive as they used to be. Every month. It felt like there was less money left over, and Mike wasn't alone. Millions of people felt exactly the same. So he told himself something almost everyone says: when I earn more, I'll finally start investing. It sounded reasonable. In fact, it sounded responsible. But it was also the biggest lie he'd ever told himself. Not because he meant to lie, but because he'd been saying the same sentence for years. Jake heard Mike say it almost every month. Next raise, next bonus, after Christmas, once I pay off this bill, maybe next year. The deadline kept moving, like chasing the horizon. The closer Mike got, the farther it seemed away. One afternoon, Jake asked him a simple question. How much more money do you think you need before you start investing? Mike didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, because he genuinely didn't know. $500 more? $1,000? $5,000? There was never a number, only the feeling that now isn't the right time. Jake smiled. Can I show you something? Mike nodded. Jake grabbed a blank sheet of paper. In the middle, he drew 2 buckets. On the first bucket, he wrote today's happiness. On the second, he wrote future freedom. Then he pulled a $10 bill out of his wallet. Every dollar you earn has one job. You decide which bucket it goes into. Mike shrugged. Obviously, both. Jake laughed. Eventually, yes. But every dollar has to go somewhere first. When you buy coffee, Jake dropped the imaginary $10 into the first bucket. You buy a little happiness. When you order takeout, another $10. Another little moment of happiness. New headphones? Another $10. Streaming subscriptions? Another. Soon, the first bucket was overflowing. The second bucket was still empty. Mike stared at the drawing. Jake looked at him. See the problem? Mike shook his head. Jake pointed at the empty bucket. Your future never gets paid. Mike frowned. But I'm enjoying my life. Isn't that the point? Jake nodded. Of course. You should enjoy your life. I'm not saying never buy coffee. I'm saying your future deserves a paycheck too. Mike stayed quiet because nobody had ever explained money that way before. That night, Mike went home thinking about those 2 buckets for the first time. He wasn't wondering how much coffee cost. He was wondering something much more uncomfortable. How much of my income actually belongs to my future? He opened his banking app, scrolled through last month's transactions, coffee, food delivery, shopping, subscriptions, convenience. Nothing looked outrageous, but together, they told a story. Not of someone who loved spending, but of someone who had never given his future first place. The next morning, Mike almost skipped his coffee. Then he smiled, bought it anyway. Because this story isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming aware. Jake still bought coffee. Jake still went out with friends. Jake still enjoyed weekends. The difference wasn't what Jake spent. The difference was what Jake protected first, every payday. Before life could take a single dollar, Jake paid one person, his future self, and that tiny habit was quietly changing everything. Mike still wasn't convinced. $10? Seriously? How could something so small possibly matter? Jake understood exactly why Mike felt that way. Because the biggest force in investing is completely invisible in the beginning. And that's exactly why most people quit before they ever experience it. If I gave you a snowball the size of a tennis ball and told you it could one day become large enough to crush a house, you'd probably laugh. But that's exactly how wealth grows. Tiny at first, invisible for a long time. Then, all at once. 3 months passed, then 6. Life looked exactly the same. Mike still stopped for coffee every morning. Jake still transferred $10 into his investment account every payday. Nothing dramatic had happened. No sudden wealth, no luxury vacations, no expensive cars. One Friday afternoon, Jake opened his investment app. He stared at the screen for a few seconds, then quietly sighed. His portfolio had grown, but barely. After months of investing, The gain wasn't even enough to pay for dinner. For the first time, Jake questioned himself. Was Mike right? That evening, the two friends met for dinner. Mike noticed Jake staring at his phone. He smiled. "Checking your investments again?" Jake nodded. "How's billionaire life?" Mike joked. Jake laughed. "Not exactly." Mike leaned back. "See? I told you. You've been investing for months. And what do you have to show for it?" Jake looked down at his portfolio. Honestly, Mike had a point. The numbers looked small, painfully small. And that's exactly where most people quit. Because we live in a world that rewards speed. Food arrives in minutes. Movies start instantly. Packages arrive tomorrow. We tap a button and expect results. Investing doesn't work like that. The stock market doesn't care how impatient you are. Wealth doesn't grow on your schedule. It grows on its own, quietly, slowly, almost invisibly at first. The hardest part about building wealth isn't investing, it's continuing to invest. When it feels like nothing is happening, that's the moment most people mistake silence for failure. The following Monday, Jake almost skipped his investment. He opened his banking app, hovered over the transfer button, then stopped. Maybe I should wait. Maybe I need more money first. Maybe I should invest when the market goes down. Maybe next month. The excuses sounded familiar because they were the exact same excuses Mike had been using for years. Jake smiled, closed his eyes for a second, then pressed invest, $10, again. He wasn't investing because he felt motivated. He was investing because he had made himself a promise, and promises matter most. On the days you don't feel like keeping them. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into a year. The deposits kept coming. $10, $20, sometimes $50, sometimes $100. Whenever Jake earned a little more, his investments grew a little too. Not because he suddenly became rich, but because his habits became stronger. Meanwhile, Mike's income had increased too. He received a raise, a bigger paycheck, exactly what he'd been waiting for. At first, he felt relieved. Finally, more money. But something strange happened. Within a few months, the extra money disappeared. Not because Mike was irresponsible, because his lifestyle quietly grew with his income. A nicer phone, a newer streaming service, more takeout, a better apartment, weekend trips, nothing outrageous, just slightly better everything. The raise didn't build wealth, it upgraded expenses. Jake got the same raise, but before changing anything else, he changed one number, his monthly investment. That was it. He still enjoyed life, he still bought coffee, he still met friends on weekends. But every raise had a purpose. His future received the first increase, not his spending. One afternoon, Mike looked at Jake's investment account again. This time, something looked different, not dramatic, but undeniable. The line that had barely moved for months had started to curve upward. Mike frowned. Wait, that wasn't there before. Jake smiled. Exactly. This is the part nobody sees. Everyone wants the tree. Nobody wants to plant the seed. Everyone wants the $1 million. Nobody wants the first 100. Everyone wants financial freedom. Nobody wants the years of looking like they're making no progress. Jake picked up a snowball from the side of the road after a winter walk. It fit easily in one hand. See this? Mike nodded. Imagine trying to judge how big this snowball will become. After the first 5 seconds of rolling, Mike laughed. It would still be tiny. Jake nodded. Exactly. That doesn't mean it isn't growing. It just hasn't reached the point where growth becomes obvious. Wealth works the same way. In the beginning, your effort feels bigger than your results. Then one day, without warning, your results become bigger than your effort. That's the moment people call getting lucky. But luck had nothing to do with it. The real work happened months, or even years earlier, when nobody was watching, when nothing looked impressive, when quitting would have been easy. Mike looked at Jake for a long moment. for the first time. He wasn't thinking about coffee or subscriptions or spending. He was thinking about time, because suddenly, he realized something that hit harder than any market crash ever could. Money wasn't the thing he'd been wasting. Time was, and unlike money, time never compounds backward. 5 years passed, not overnight, not after some magical investment, not because the market suddenly exploded, just 5 ordinary years. 5 years of Mondays, 5 years of paychecks, 5 years of tiny decisions, the kind nobody celebrates, the kind nobody posts on social media, the kind that quietly shape your future while you're too busy living your present. One Saturday afternoon, Jake and Mike met for coffee. The same coffee shop, the same table, the same drinks. For a moment, it almost felt like nothing had changed. Until Mike looked at Jake. There was something different about him. Not his clothes, not his watch, not his car. It was something harder to describe. Jake looked calm. There was no anxiety when the waiter brought the bill, no hesitation before paying, no quiet calculation running through his head, no wondering if payday was still 3 days away. Just peace. Mike noticed it immediately. "You seem different." Jake smiled. "Do I?" "Yeah. You don't seem worried anymore." Jake looked out the window for a second, then quietly replied, "I'm still careful with money. I'm just not afraid of it anymore." Mike stirred his coffee. "So, how much did you make from investing?" Jake laughed. "That's the wrong question." Mike frowned. "Then what's the right question?" Jake leaned forward. "How much stress did investing remove from my life?" Mike stayed silent. Jake continued, "I have an emergency fund now. If my car breaks down, I don't panic. If I lose my job, I have time to find another one. When unexpected expenses show up, they don't control my life. Investing didn't just grow my money. It bought me choices. It bought me time. It bought me peace of mind. That's the return nobody talks about." Mike looked down at his coffee. 5 years. He had earned thousands more than he used to. He'd worked overtime, accepted raises, worked weekends. Yet somehow, every month still felt the same. His paycheck arrived, his bills followed, and whatever remained disappeared without leaving anything behind. Not because he was reckless, because he'd spent 5 years improving his lifestyle, instead of improving his future. For the first time, Mike wasn't jealous. He wasn't even impressed. He was disappointed, not in Jake, in himself. Because he realized something painful. The hardest part wasn't knowing what to do. It was knowing he could have started 5 years ago. Jake noticed the look on Mike's face. "Don't do that." Mike looked up. "Do what?" "Punish yourself. Everyone starts late. The important thing is, you finally started thinking differently." Mike smiled. "So, what should I do?" Jake reached into his wallet, pulled out a $10 bill, placed it on the table, exactly like he had years earlier. "Start here," Mike laughed. $10? Jake nodded. "It's never been about the amount. It's about proving something to yourself. That your future deserves to get paid before your excuses do." Mike looked at the $10. This time, he didn't see coffee. He didn't see lunch. He didn't see something too small to matter. For the first time, he saw a habit, and habits become futures. Here's the truth. Most people don't stay broke because they aren't intelligent. They stay broke because they underestimate the power of ordinary days. One coffee won't make you poor. One investment won't make you rich. But thousands of small decisions, repeated over years, will absolutely change your life. The future isn't built by one extraordinary moment. It's built by ordinary moments, repeated with extraordinary consistency. So, today, ask yourself one simple question. When your next paycheck arrives, who gets paid first, your impulses or your future? Because every dollar you earn is waiting for a decision. Spend it or put it to work. Either way, you're building something. The only question is, what are you building? If today's story made you see your own habits a little differently, then don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for your next raise. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start with one small decision, because 5 years from now, you'll either thank the person you are today, or you'll wish you had become them sooner. I'll see you in the next episode, because Jake and Mike's story is only just beginning.